Did you guys know that? Order, right? So when you hear the word Seder, you say, I'll have a hot pastrami on rye with mustard, right? It doesn't mean that kind of order. It means what we're seeing on the center of our tables, these are the Seder plates, and this is what directs the order of the evening and the services that you're having either at your home or at the synagogue or what have you. Okay, so the first item we have here is the unleavened bread or matzah, which, by the way, I hope you don't mind if I mix in a little bit of linguistics. Oh, I'm supposed to show it. Okay.
Ahead of the table.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay, so this is matzah, which actually is a Yiddish word. It's not Hebrew. Masa is Hebrew. Matzah is Yiddish. And so why do we eat it? It is eaten because the dough of our ancestors had not time to become leavened. Before the Supreme King of Kings, the Most Holy, redeemed them and said, they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they had brought forth out of Egypt. For it had not leavened because they were in a hurry to get out of Egypt and could not wait for the dough to rise. Okay, and then the next item, thank you. The next item you'll see on your plates is the bitter herbs. We also say maror in Hebrew for bitter herbs. What does it mean? It is eaten because the Egyptians embittered the lives of our ancestors in Egypt. They embittered their lives with hard bondage in mortar and brick and in all manner of labor in the fields. All their labor was imposed upon them as slaves. Now, in Ashkenazi tradition, fresh romaine lettuce or endives, I forgot how my wife told me to say this, is it endives? Okay. I don't know. Is there a green grocer in the house? Endives. Okay. Fresh romaine lettuce or endives, both representing the bitterness of the Roman invasions. Or horseradish may be eaten as maror in the fulfillment of the mitzvah of eating bitter herbs during the Seder. Okay. Chazeret, additional bitter herbs, usually romaine lettuce, used in the korech. The korech is actually, that is a Hebrew word, just like maror, and it means rap. Now it doesn't mean rap like Biggie Small, Tupac, that kind of rap. It's not like, that kind of thing. I don't know how you make a rap with a matzah, but that's what it means. So, but it actually, we say sandwich. We say the korech sandwich. And inside of that, of course, we use the matzah, and we use chazeret, and we use the maror, okay, to make that. But that's a little bit later. The egg, we say in Hebrew, beitzah, a traditional food of mourning, is on the Seder plate, since its rounded shape symbolizes the cycle of life. Expresses our mourning for the destruction of the Holy Temple and the lack of the sacrifices. Once we lost Beit HaMikdash, which is what we call the great temple that stood in Israel, once we lost that temple, we were no longer able to make the sacrifices that we did make. It is, for good or bad, a part of the Hebrew tradition that we had animal sacrifices. Once that temple was gone, there was no more possibility of this. So continuing on page 6, along with mourning comes consolation. Thus, some say that the egg evokes the suffering and subsequent consolation from God that the Israelites experienced. This is in line with what we say in the traditional Haggadah, and quote, therefore it is our duty to thank and praise, who else but God, who did all these miracles for us. We were taken from slavery to freedom, and from mourning to festivity, end quote. Now, many of the ancient Egyptians held religious beliefs that prevented them from consuming meat, fish, or eggs. This is a little known fact, but there is I'm just doing another little departure here. There are historians, Egyptologists, who have uncovered that one of the most famous pharaohs, which was Ashkenaz, he had temples in which no animal sacrifices could be done, because he decreed that there would be no such thing as a consuming of animals or using them as sacrifices in Egypt. And they've actually, here's a quote from one of the historians. He says, "No sacrifice were offered up in his temples. The fruit of the earth came alone and were laid on the altars." And of course, this is what he would then, of course, use to feed the priests and their families. So I just wanted to just reiterate the accuracy of this statement, that there were no sacrifices, that there was no meat consumed in Egypt. However, continuing on page 6 again, on the night that we celebrate being taken out of Egypt, out of Egyptian bondage, some Jews have both meat and eggs on the Seder plate, showing that we are no longer bound by these rules. The use of an egg which has no opening on this day is to be interpreted as the mouths of our captors became closed to us, like the smooth egg is closed. So what does that mean? That means they can no longer tell us what to do. Their mouths are closed, that's it. Just like this egg is smooth, so is their face to the Hebrew people. Okay, so we're moving on to page 7. We have karpas, which means fresh vegetables. And a little bit more linguistics here. Karpas actually is not a Hebrew word. It comes from the Greek for fresh vegetables. And as you notice here, we're talking about Romans, we're talking about Yiddish, we're talking about Greeks, we're talking about different people. And what I love is that when people come together in whatever way, we sort of bump up against each other, and we get to know each other, we borrow, we learn from each other, we borrow from each other. And this is, and I see this evident even on our Passover plates, on our Seder plates. So continuing with karpas, a vegetable other than bitter herbs. My wife uses parsley, by the way, and so do most of the people that I know. Representing hope and renewal, which is dipped into salt water at the beginning of the Seder. Some substitute parsley or a slice of green onion, representing the bitterness of slavery in Egypt, or potato, representing the bitterness of the ghetto in Germany and in the European countries. Both commonly used. The dipping of a simple vegetable into salt water and the resulting dripping of water off of said vegetables visually represents tears and is a symbolic reminder of the pain felt by the Hebrew slaves in Egypt. See how all of this is just so symbolic. Everything that we're having here before us tonight is very symbolic. Okay, so let's see. Usually, I'm sorry, I almost lost my place. Usually in Shabbat or holiday meal, the first thing to be eaten after the Kiddush, the blessing over the wine, is bread. At the Seder table, however, the first thing to be eaten after the Kiddush is a vegetable. It symbolizes the springtime, because Jews celebrate Passover in the spring. This leads immediately to the recital of the famous question, Ma Natishana, excuse me. Why is this night different from all other nights? This is a famous series of questions that's asked every Passover by the youngest in attendance. Okay, so and continuing with Zeroah, which is the shank bone that you see on your center of your table. Also transliterated as Zeroah, is special as it is the only element of meat on the Seder plate. Roasted chicken neck or shank bone, symbolizing the Paschal lamb, or the Passover sacrifice, which was a lamb that was offered in the temple in Jerusalem, that's the Beit HaMikdash I told you about, the great temple. This is what people would offer when they came from all over the world during Passover. So it was offered in the temple in Jerusalem, then roasted and eaten as part of the meal or Seder, on Seder night. Since the destruction of the temple, the Zeroah serves as a visual reminder of the Pesach sacrifice. It is not eaten or handled during the Seder. Vegetarians often substitute a beet. Other vegetarians substitute a sweet potato, allowing a Paschal yam to represent the Paschal Lamb. Kind of like a play on words. I did notice that there is something that's missing from your page, and it is the charoset, which you see is like the brown paste there. And I don't have it on my page, but I'm prepared to talk about it. Charoset is a Hebrew word that means clay. And it looks like this. And it's a Hebrew word that means clay. It represents the mortar used when the Hebrews made bricks. When they were slaves, they had to turn brick. Anybody see the Ten Commandments? Charlton Heston knew this one. Yeah. So this is what this represents. Now, in Ashkenazi tradition, that's Eastern European Jewish tradition. They use apples, walnuts, and red wine. But you have to use the sweet wine, like the Mogen David, the Manischewitz, and this is what the charoset was made with.
We use grape juice.
Grape juice, okay, that's another option, alternative. The Sephardim, the Jews who are from more of the Mediterranean region, they have another way of doing theirs. They use figs and almonds and honey. Think of baklava and the filling that's inside of it. That's how they make theirs, which is, by the way, how my wife makes ours at home. And she's Ashkenazi, not Sephardim, but we just like the flavor. So thank you. And at this time, we're going to ask that you, all wonderful, lovely people here, turn to your neighbor and share about a food that was special to you as a child. We all have